This is Tony Chimmel, and I'd like to introduce the hosts of the Game Marks podcast, George Feis and Johnny Clash.
To the Game Marks podcast, where each and every week we take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the awesome of all things video games. My name is George Feis.
And I'm the man they call Johnny Clash, and today we are playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, and we're going to have a big recap of Gameboree 2024.
And as always, please make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and a review for this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen. And make sure to follow along on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And don't forget, you can get access to the show notes, ad-free episodes, and exclusive content as a part of our Patreon over at patreon.com/PodExchange. We also have an exclusive PodExchange store. It is podexchange.shop. That is PodXchange.shop. But Johnny Clash, how are you doing?
What's up, Georgie? We had a crazy 2 months. We finally are back over here recording on our regularly scheduled day and platform, and man, the craziness of Gameboree has come to an end. You guys are probably sick of seeing it, sick of hearing about it. But if you don't know what it is, every year we try to raise as much money as we can for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital around the holidays. We usually start it right after Thanksgiving, maybe even sometimes earlier than that. I think early November. Not the band, but just early November. And we run all the way through New Year's. We did our big event on Sunday this week. Sunday, right? It was Sunday. We ran some Fortnite games. We had some fun. We did some Bean Boozled. We took some shots. We did some last dabs. It was a hell of a time. We raised, ready? Give me that Georgie patented drum roll. Oh, I hate it. $2,365, which is absolutely insane.
Unbelievable.
We are so grateful for everyone who even dropped into one of the streams, George's YouTube channel, the Game Marks YouTube channel, my Twitch account. We had so much fun, even though we ate so many bad Bean Boozled beans and took so many shots and burnt our mouths. We had Swoggle on with us to do a Hot Ones stream. This is something I think going forward, this might be the format we go, because it was a hell of a time.
That was a lot of fun. Shout out to both communities, the Game Marks community and the Johnny Clash TTV community.
They're half the same.
Yeah, but you know what? There's not a ton of crossover, but for the ones that are crossover, it's doubly appreciated. And then to all the new faces that joined us because of that, we appreciate all of the support. And of course, we have to thank our sponsors, Collect Major and the Secret Levels podcast, helping us out, raising money. Secret Levels also doing their own fundraising events, helping us out to get that number as high as we possibly could. Collect Major donating figures. Shout out to Knick, Matt, Brian, and Mark for always helping out and being a part of Gameboree.
Hall of Games. Let's talk about Hall of Games. We added Phil Cardigan to the Hall of Games under the celebrity wing, we'll call it, under the guest wing. We added Fire Pro Wrestling World. That was George's pick. My pick was WrestleMania, the arcade game, and Patreon picked Saturday Night Slam Masters. Now, next year, I think we're going to have to add a non-wrestling title that we played, which is the Super Mario games, which is our birthday picks, the Jurassic Park, and that, the Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And, of course, the games we're playing today, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, remember, it had Tony Hawk. That's right. Soup's in the chat, calling out Tony Hawk. So it has to be games we double played it forever. So it should be interesting to see what goes into the Hall next year. And I know Patreon had a few other ideas that we're willing to mull over and see what we could do.
Yeah, I think, for only having done the Hall of Games twice, I think there are definitely some ways that it can grow and evolve and advance over the course of time when we do the podcast. We are 6 years too late
Yeah, a little bit.
for doing this. We should have been doing this a lot sooner, but we had other ideas of how we could incorporate a Hall of Games, and it ended up being that it was just easier if we do it uh, ourselves this way. And I'll be honest with you, man, a lot of things changing in 2025. Let's talk about it very briefly here. Raw on Netflix, man.
It felt like just a new era. It felt like a new show.
It feels like a big deal. Wrestling feels like a big deal, or bigger deal than it already was.
And today they announced a multi-year partnership with TNA. It's just so much happening in wrestling and all like good things. So I'm looking forward to more on Netflix to see what happens. I know they don't have like a hard in or out for time. So people are kind of complaining that Monday's episode ended at 10:30. I'm like, that's great. No one wants to sit there for 3 hours.
Yeah, if it doesn't need to go long, then it shouldn't. And if there's a ton happening, like I would imagine around Mania, they're going to go long.
7-hour shows.
They're going to go long because there's going to be a lot of storytelling leading up to Mania. Who knows? Rumble happens. What changes are going to happen at the Rumble? Who's coming back? Who's going to be, claiming their spot for Mania? It's going to be. I feel like we've said this recently, and it holds true now. It's a very interesting and exciting time to be a wrestling fan. There's a lot happening.
A lot freaking happening. Now let's talk about the GMP world. GMP 24 came back this week after a little brief holiday hiatus. We are back. We are on the road to GMP Mania. Elimination Chamber is only a few weeks away, and we have some plans for that. Go head on over to YouTube right now and check out GMP 24 on our channel. It's our WWE Universe mode. We write storylines. We make it all happen. We do commentary, and it's a whole hell of a lot of fun. And I like whooping George's ass in the game every week.
Yeah, he does do that a lot. But hey, John, with that, man, are you ready to get into the game for this week? Are you ready to take that deep dive into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? NES.
Yeah, let's go.
Looking to add the newest wrestling figures to your lineup? There's no better spot to pick up your next figure than the Wrestling Collector Shop.
Started by collectors for collectors around the globe, Wrestling Collector Shop has been serving the fans the latest and greatest in wrestling action figures since 2002. So the next time you're looking for the newest wrestling collectible to add to your collection, make sure go to WrestlingCollectorShop.com and use code GameMarks to save yourself 10% on your order.
That's 10% off your order with code GameMarks at WrestlingCollectorShop.com.
All right, the deep dive brought to you by our friends over at Wrestling Collector Shop. Make sure to use code GameMarks to save yourself 10% over at Wrestling Collector Shop. You just heard the ad. We just wanted to remind you before we get into this game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles released December of 1989 for the NES, developed by Konami, published by Ultra Games. Other notable NES games in 1989 and 1990, you've got Super Mario Bros. 3 releasing in 1988 in Japan and 1990 in North America. You've got Mega Man 2. That's also 1988 in Japan and 1989 in North America. You've got DuckTales in 1989, Batman in 1989, Final Fantasy in 1990 in North America, and then you have Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse in 1990. Now, let's talk a little bit about the game itself, because this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game is an action-adventure game where you have to control, or you get to control, all 4 turtles as you try to rescue April O'Neil and Splinter while defeating Shredder and the Foot Clan. You will explore various locations throughout New York City. You're in the sewers. You're in buildings. There's a water level. It's crazy. You tackle challenges, enemies, obstacles, and this is notoriously one of the more challenging titles in I don't know, in a lot of people's memories. I know we talked about it we mentioned it to Swoggle, and Swoggle's reaction was, "Oh my god, that's one of the hardest games I've ever played."
It has everything the typical like platformer side-scrolling game should have, but I feel like the level of bad guys that come at you in each, I guess, section, I don't want to call them levels because there's a lot to each level. Each building you go in is just astronomical. So unless you're, which only 2 buttons on the NES, unless you're jumping and diving and weaving and you pick the right character and you keep switching characters between the weapons and know who does what and where you are in the map, it is so freaking hard to navigate. It's so hard to like just move on from here. We played a few. We're not going to go and play it all, but I'm willing to go on YouTube and actually watch someone play through the whole game and just see how they do it, how they navigate through these levels.
I have tried, over the course of many years to beat this game, and
it frustrates me so much.
It is a very frustrating game to play, but there is a level of, I don't know, not necessarily muscle memory, but there's a pattern that you can follow to get through the levels, and while it's incredibly challenging, it also is rewarding, and it's an enjoyable experience once you learn that. Like once you get over the difficulty factor.
Yeah. I just think this was when TMNT was like bursting onto the scene. I don't think they should have made a game this hard. They look at the cover of the game. All 4 turtles are in red. That is very, very early Ninja Turtles. But for all of this to come out, and then this game is just so damn hard. As a kid, I feel like I would be so turned off by that. Now, for this to come out in the early 90s, late 80s, I was very young. I probably didn't play it until like 92, 93 on the NES. When I would play this with my dad, I just would load in, pick Leonardo because he was the best, and he still is the best. And I would just slice through a couple guys, probably walk around outside a little bit. Now, the thing is, I do remember other levels. So as that little kid, I was probably better than I am now at this game because I did not hold up well. But also, I probably played it a lot more. So, but I would like just going in and just being like, cool, the Ninja Turtles. And
which, to the point that I had said before, it's one of those games that the more you play it, and that goes for a lot of games, the more you play it, the better that you'll get at it because you learn the little tricks. And we're going to talk about it the more that we get into the characters and their skill sets, but there are benefits to switching up your characters. They have different movesets and range and things like that. So it's once you learn that, the game becomes a lot not less challenging, but you can see what the vision was.
Yeah, definitely. And it's right on par there with like the Super Marios, the Mega Mans. Like it's the same thing. Even the Batman game. I said during our playthrough, it's kind of like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker a little bit, which came later. But they all follow the same like typical side scroll platformer. So
yeah, that's a tried and true style of gaming. So
now the Ninja Turtles being that new, maybe they could have added like a little bit more to this, like the Batman game, for instance. That's the Tim Burton Batman we know and love, and I played the shit out of that game, as well as the Game Boy version, which is similar, but it's a little bit different. I actually like the Game Boy one a little bit more. I think maybe they could have waited a little on the video game side. I don't know.
I remember watching the cartoon and then like going to Blockbuster, seeing this game and being confused by the cover, but knowing the logo. And I was like, well, I want the TMNT game. I want the TMNT game. and then taking it home and immediately being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why is this game so hard? And now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. This game
Why
is
this
so
game
hard.
See, I have the first comic somewhere, so I knew that they were all red. I just didn't know why. But maybe I think I've told you before. I took art classes from Peter Laird's brother.
Oh, I don't
We
know
talked
if
about
you've
this
mentioned.
on here before because you were like, "Wait a minute, what?"
I'm having the same reaction I had then.
Yeah. But he was at the local library and he was just giving art lessons, and he was also a very good artist like Peter Laird. So he sat there and he made us draw like superheroes and stuff, kind of showing us different techniques. And I remember he came over and I drew like kind of like a Captain Underpants ripoff. He was like, "Oh, I've seen you've drawn before," and I was like, "Oh, ding, 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 ding." I'm like, "Hire me." I mean, I was 7. But
And that set you on the course for the rest of your life.
honestly, it may have. Let's talk about the gameplay here. So it alternates between top-down, kind of open-world exploration where you're outside on the street level, and the characters look a little different because they are top-down. Think GTA 1 or 2, but you're not farting at anybody. You can now go in the buildings that are open, and if not, you go down into the sewer. There are also foot soldiers coming after you. There's also tanks trying to run you over. It's a little chaotic, a little crazy. You can still use your weapon.
I never understood why those were called tanks. They're like bulldozers or like
I call them tanks.
steamrollers.
Yeah, well, they're some sort of large vehicle that will roll you over.
And they're fast.
They're fast. You have to get out of the way. And you can still use your weapons. You can still change which turtle you are. And then you go into the levels, which take you out into the other side, into another section of this little map that you're on. So that's where the side scrolling comes in. That's where all the bad guys are. There are bosses. There's Bebop and Rocksteady. We're going to get all into that in a little bit. Now, each turtle has their different strengths, their different weapons. And at first, you're kind of like, okay, they're probably all the same, different weapons. But you have to really get used to what they are and in what situation you should use them, as we were talking about a little earlier. You got pizza, which restores your health. There's whole, there's halves, and there's little slices, so that will restore your little chick, chick, chick on the bottom of the HUD. There are power-ups, which gives you kind of invincibility, where you could just steamroll through your opponents. You're a little ball like Sonic the Hedgehog, but your weapon's attached to you, so you're just rolling through everybody. There are traps, there's timed jumps, there's all the restricted areas that you can't get in without certain things. There's rope you have to get. It's just, there's a lot in this game. As much as we complain, as much as we hate it, I kind of do like the challenge.
It's not hate from a place of like the game is bad and I hate it. It's a challenging game in a way that makes you frustrated, but not to a point where you don't want to play the game. It makes you, it's the kind of challenging where you're like, I want to keep playing this to get better and to beat it. It's almost like the coin, like the quarter eater games that you're just like, I gotta keep going. So you have this one arcade machine that you're just sinking quarters into over and over and over again, but this is on a home console level. So you're like, well, I got to continue. Yeah.
Until you can't. And you're dead and you have to move on and start over again right at the beginning, which is awful. Now, you also get, when you get hit, it drains you fast. And you have to get out of the way. Oh, it's awful. But let's talk about the actual gameplay, the game modes here. It is single player. You can only play one person at a time. And the story is Shredder kidnaps April and tries to obtain the Life Transformer gun, which is capable of restoring Splinter's human form. So he wants him out of here. So the Turtles obviously have to save April because she's April. Everybody loves April. You defeat Bebop in the sewers, you chase Rocksteady, and you lead to a warehouse eventually where the Turtles rescue after defeating Rocksteady. Now you have to disable bombs at the Hudson River Dam after Shredder captures Splinter. And it kind of takes you through a lot of places in New York City, which is funny because think of like Batman and Superman, how it's Gotham, Metropolis, the light and the dark of New York City, where a lot of these are just like, no, it's JFK Airport, it's the Hudson River, it's all that stuff. So that's kind of funny. But eventually you rescue April, you celebrate with pizza as any one would, obviously. And yeah, it's a really fun little story once you actually get through it after you stop throwing your controller. Now, the levels here. You have the streets of New York, which are the sewer and street combined. You have the Hudson River Dam, which is the underwater level and it has traps. It has bomb defusing tasks. You have the Wall
we've said
Street.
it before. Everybody loves an underwater level.
Do they? You have the Wall Street rooftops. Now, I used to work somewhere near Wall Street, so I wonder if they were fighting on my old building there.
Oh,
That's where you encounter the Mecha Turtle. And JFK Airport, where the enemies grow stronger, and the Big Mauser boss battle. South Bronx Lair is where you navigate the Foot Clan's underground base and infiltrate the Technodrome. And then the Technodrome, the final stage featuring Shredder and the Reactor Core battle.
man, oh man.
But all right, let's take a quick little break here, and then we're coming back. We're going to talk about the characters, their weapons, and the villains.
All right, so let's talk about the characters within the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. So, like we said before, during the gameplay, at any point, you could just press the start button, the pause menu, and you'll get a little mini map. You'll see Splinter, and then you will have the option to choose between the 4 turtles. Now, each one has a unique ability and weapon, and ability is tied to the weapon. It's not like they have like special power-ups or anything. So Leonardo is fairly balanced with his attacking. It's all around. It's not, he can attack from all heights. He has a good that's pretty much why John loves him so much in this game, is that he's very ranged or very well versed in all ranges here, and he has his katana, of course. Then you have Michelangelo, who has limited range but attacks faster with his nunchucks. And you have Donatello, who has the longest range and the strongest power attack. And of course, he has his bow staff. And then you have Raphael, who has the short range, but also has, much like Michelangelo, a fast attack rate. And as we touched on before, John so lovingly took us through the villains. You got Shredder, Bebop, Rocksteady, the Technodrome bosses, and of course the Foot Clan soldiers.
Yeah, and Donatello's long-range weapon was kind of deceiving because it looks like you should be able to swipe like Leonardo's, but you can't have everything in this world. So you could only go straight up or down. So it's kind of like a stabbing motion down, stabbing motion up, and then a stabbing motion out. I wish you could just swing it. But I get it. He would just be too OP for this. So I think I liked Raphael the least. He has the faster attack rate, but it's such short range. So some of them would, you have to be right on top of, say, like Bebop and Rocksteady to do this. Of course, I would go with Leonardo. He's pretty balanced. So
yeah, I think I bounced in between Donatello and Leonardo the most.
I think that would, anyone who's willing to play, I think those are the two you shouldn't go with. But you mentioned the art before.
Yes.
Now, big TMNT, everybody knows that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles logo, big up top, and then you got the 4 turtles with their weapons on top of it. Looks like on top of that, looks like a plane almost, but it could be the Technodrome or that blimp they used to have. But they're all red, like you said, like the comic book. Every single character wearing a red mask. Not easy to differentiate unless you look at their weapons. That comes later on. But once you get in the game, they are actually colored in the mask and whatever, like they are, as you would know them. The back cover, big TMNT logo. Fresh from the classic comics comes Heroes in a Half Shell. There we go. I could have just read that earlier. With some New York references, Bronx to Broadway, Chinatown. It's funny because we just know what those places are, but everyone else just knows them from like games and movies and stories and stuff. The screenshots on the right in those CRT television like bubbles. Now there's that underwater level that I just hate so much. It's got the electricity that comes out. Now you're trying to balance going through the electricity with getting hit by the stupid little fish.
Oh yeah,
It's not fun. It's not
I
fun.
have vivid memories of that level.
And look at that. Look for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures by Playmates Toys. And it's
Hey,
crazy that the same toys are still being released today. Same exact ones
nostalgia, man.
by multiple different companies. I have so many. But let's get to the graphics here. Now, you have the HUD. It takes up the bottom, I would say, like, I don't know, an inch or two of your TV. If you're playing, it's not big at all. It's out of the way. It shows your weapon. It shows your health. It shows your points. It shows your high score. There's also a little empty slot next to your weapon where you could pick up power-ups and ninja stars and use those as well, which I think came in handy for a lot of the time we were playing this game, especially when the big clusters of the Technodrome guys were coming at you. You just throw them at you and they were done. It's one of those platformers that just repeats a lot. And of course, it's on NES. Mario did it. A bunch of them did it. They're all going to do it.
It's also like a sign of it's a very common thing of like that generation. It's just like at a certain point, yeah, it still happens.
Still happening now. But we were saying while playing this game, like this for an NES game from 1989, it still looks so nice. It's colorful. It's on par, I would say, with like the Batman game. If you go look at screenshots for the Batman game, it's perfect. There's colors everywhere. It's not that like monochromatic typical Nintendo game where they're using a small color palette. It's really nice. You could tell which turtle you are. You could actually see the weapons. You could see the bad guys. I think it's visually very appealing.
I'm trying to remember other games that have done it this style in the way that they do the repeating, because this was how it was with them. You have that ground texture and then you just repeat that block over and over and over again. And I know some people who, accept that, like what we were just talking about. This is the sign of the times. It's what games look like back then. So that was like the ground texture that repeats throughout the level. I know certain people that couldn't stand when they would go back to play a game. It was like the first thing that they would notice, like, oh, I can't stand it. And I would never understand that from the sense of like, but you have to separate that game from where we are now. Like, yeah. You can't be comparing a game from 1989 to a game in, like current titles. It's not even fair to do that.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it honestly could hold up against a lot of those. Like, think of Guacamelee. It looks nice because it's all like vectored and super nice graphics, but it still takes elements from games like this.
Oh, 100%. This is the foundation. Like this generation of platforming has laid the foundation for so many games that came after it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But did you know? Did you know TMNT was released in 2007 on the Wii's Virtual Console and was deemed too hard by critics?
Did you know Konami, under the Ultra Games label, released DOS, Commodore 64, and Amiga versions in North America in 1990?
Did you know this game is on eBay from $10 cartridge only to $65 to $145 complete, and there's a WATA graded 7.0 for only $71?
Damn.
So, I mean, if you're a Ninja Turtle completist, I mean, that's not a great grade for a game, but $70, if you got it, go get it. It's on eBay right now. I made these notes a couple days ago, so it's there. But it's been a long time. Gameboree kind of knocked us out. I'm freaking tired right now. You probably are too, George. I think it's time to sit back. It's time to relax. It's time for some R&R, some ratings and reviews. There's not that many here, but EGM gives this a 23 out of 40. Nintendo Power gives it an 8.25 out of 10. Now, if you want to go to the Wii here, GameSpot gives it a 2.7 out of 10, and IGN gives it a 5.5 out of 10. Now, this is kind of what we're talking about here, because we played it. It's a good game. It's a very nice looking game. It's not broken. There's nothing keeping you away other than the fact that it's hard and frustrating. Oh, Nintendo Life gives the Wii version a 3 out of 10. I feel like from what I read in the reviews, It's just people bitching that it's too hard, so they give it a bad review. But is a bad this should be a soft lock question. Is a bad game hard? I mean, should a hard game be considered bad? I don't think so.
I think it depends on. So I think it would be a matter of, is the game too difficult to the point where you can't complete it? Or is the game challenging where it requires, I don't know, a certain level of knowledge to complete the game? Like, I don't, there's a deciding factor, like almost like a broken difficulty where things are too hard to the point where it's just like the game feels broken, or if it's something that maybe people look at this game that way, where it's just like it's so frustratingly challenging that you're just like, I don't know what to do.
No, I think people need to suck it up and not be, oh, the game's too hard, I'm going to give it a bad review. So by May of 1990, this game sold 1 million cartridges in the US, which is crazy for an NES game. But that's when the Ninja Turtles were like peak. They were hot. They were here, and they were here to stay, as you can see right now. By the end of 1990, the game sold more than 4 million cartridges worldwide, earning $125 million for Konami. Now, with inflation, that goes up to $307 million today. It would be.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a wild stat.
Well,
to think, what was WWE 2K20, the really bad one? They didn't even sell 1 million copies. They didn't even sell like 250,000, I think.
It's insane to think back, because in my memory, it's like everything is Ninja Turtles, and then Ninja Turtles slowly like starts to transition into like the Power Rangers craze. And it's just, oh man, what a crazy time. Because it's not like there's a lull and like something else, like they were like, we're waiting for the next big thing. It, like, for my memory as someone who was growing up around this time, it's everything Ninja Turtles, and then immediately from Ninja Turtles you're like, hey, there's this new martial arts thing that you're gonna like, it's Power Rangers. Now we're transitioning from that to that.
I am right there with you. That's exactly my trajectory as well. And then,
and I'm sure that there's other things in there, like, you know, there's
when I was punished and I couldn't watch Power Rangers because I did something bad, I would just watch VR Troopers or Beetleborgs because it was on at the same time.
VR Troopers. I forgot about that show.
Everyone was ripping off Power Rangers back in the day. VR Troopers. Wow. They sucked.
I forgot about that. And I forgot about Beetleborgs too.
Beetleborgs, they were cool. I really liked Beetleborgs. And there was another one with like, it was one person kind of dressed similar. I don't remember what it was. But I had Beetleborgs toys. Those were cool. I don't know. Huh. I'll find it eventually one day. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I was talking about.
That's what I was thinking of. Man, Beetleborgs. It's crazy.
All right. With that, we heard from the critics. It's time for the most important ratings of them all. It's time for our rating. Oh, it's time to rate the game.
The game!
All right, George. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kicking off TMNT month this January. What do you say? Will you play it forever? Or future endeavor?
Think that I'm going to give this game, for the amount of time that it has been on top. So I look at this game kind of like how people look at the Lion King or Aladdin games. Like, it was, you know, the game and you love the game because of how challenging and difficult it is. And you go back because you're like, I got to see how far I can get now. I haven't played this game in however many years. I'm going to see how far I can get. And for me, this is a game that I've done that with over the course of many years, where I'll jump in, I'll see how far I can get, and then I'll get frustrated. I'm like, all right, I'll come back to this again later. And I felt the same way when we were playing it today. I'm like, man, this is so ridiculously hard, but I'm not having a bad time. I'm enjoying this because it's such a challenge, and there is such a fun, nostalgic learning curve from when platformers and games were like that. So for me, I think that this game is getting a play it forever. And now I turn the question to you, John. Will you play it forever or future endeavor?
So I haven't played this game since I was that kid playing on the NES. This is really like maybe a 30-year gap in between playing. Surprisingly, as vivid as I remember it, that's literally exactly as I remember it, which was cool. I think I could go another 30 before playing it again. And again, not because it's a bad game. I think I would just play like Shredder's Revenge or Turtles in Time or the arcade game. This one being the first, I think it's easy to just say, yeah, I'll play the newer one because they improved it. It's a little bit better. Not a game I hate, a game I have a lot of nostalgia for, but like we said, you can't wear those nostalgia goggles.
Yeah.
You have to literally rate it on if you would play this game or if you would get rid of it. And now I'm going to say future endeavor. I'm so sorry, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
For
But
me,
it'll always hold a little blip in my heart.
yeah. So for me, when I said, because you bring up a good point about nostalgia. For me, it's not nostalgia in the sense of like I've played this game, like I played this game as a kid and I liked it as a kid, so that's why I'm playing it now. It's the nostalgia factor in the challenge, if that makes sense. And like I know that this game is going to be hard because I've played it so many times, and that's the reason I keep coming back to it.
Okay, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, we would love to hear what everyone thinks about this NES classic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You could do that on all forms of social media or in the comment section if you're on Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube. You can do that now on Spotify. You can leave comments. So at Game Marks Pod on all forms of social media. We'd love to hear what you think. But with that, Johnny, you're ready to get into the soft block question of the week.
Let's do it.
All right. The Soft Lock is a segment on the podcast where one of our mega marks from Patreon give us a topic to debate, a question to answer. It is a question of the week with a fancy name. This week, the question comes from Mr. Stay Puffed in Discord. And Mr. Stay Puffed's question is, if it wasn't turtles, what other animal would be best to be Teenage Mutant Ninja?
I mean, you immediately go to like another green little fella, and you could say like frogs or something. Which
Lizards.
Yeah. Do you remember, kind of off topic, but kind of also with something we're going to do coming up, the Muppet Babies? They did an episode where they were all Ninja Turtles.
It sounds familiar. You know, if we could like phone a friend and have like a cut-in of Dylan being like, guys, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is the time to do it.
I'm going to Google that real quick. That was one of my favorite episodes of Muppet Babies.
I do remember that. It does sound familiar. I don't have like vivid memories of it.
Yes,
but
oh my God.
It sounds familiar.
I'm sending you this. Can I send it in here? No. I just remember loving that episode because it was pretty much a Ninja Turtles episode, but the Muppet Babies.
It's the crossover of your dreams.
Yeah, and I remember Kermit just looked so cool because he actually looked like a Ninja Turtle. I don't know how they got away with this, but they did.
What about Teenage Mutant Ninja Dinos?
That would be cool.
And you could do a bunch of different dinosaurs. So then you have like
chimpanzees, the strengths of those bastards. That would be funny. What about bears? Like grizzly bears. I like dinosaurs.
Like the Berenstein Bears, but they're Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles.
I think dinosaurs would be cool.
I feel like I always say that
Street
wrong.
sharks.
Is it actually pronounced bear? I never knew how to pronounce that.
Pronounce what?
You know the bear like children's books?
Berenstein bears?
Is that how you said it?
Yeah.
Okay. I always feel like people always used to say like the Bernstein Bears, and then I feel like
Well, they
one
were
day someone
wrong,
was like,
George.
"That's
They were
not
very
right.
wrong.
That's not right." And I was just like, "Oh,
Yeah. No, I'm picturing the dinosaurs. That's cool. It reminds me of like street sharks, like something like that.
yeah." I because that's the thing that I'm trying to avoid is the what's it called, the street shark of it all, because like that is not. What year did Street Sharks come out?
I don't know, but I love them. It's just weird. Like they sat there and came up with
94.
turtles that were mutated into ninjas. Like what? Like it's such like a yeah, dude. Imagine we had a show, right? And it's these turtles, and they talk to a fucking they talk to a rat in the sewer, and they eat pizza. Dude, that would be so funny. What if they're ninjas?
Well,
That could have been it. Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman could have been on an edible and came up with the whole thing.
man, I'm trying to think of other.
Yeah, but they fight a regular dude, but he's also a ninja, kind of.
What did you say? Frogs?
Frogs only because that picture of Kermit reminded me.
Yeah, but frogs would be cool though, because then it's like a whole other. It's kind of like along the same lines of the dinosaurs. Like it's you get a whole other, like style of like combat or like abilities that they can have. Or what if it's like something polar opposite? Like it's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Rabbits, and it's just like a bunch of like rabbits.
That's just
It's
nothing
just like
cool about that at all.
It's just like Bugs Bunny as a
yeah,
as a ninja.
I don't know about that one. I don't know.
What if it was a
looks like-
crossover? What if that was the next thing? What if it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Muppet Babies, and that was like a full, and it was just that. There was a whole like mini comic series based off that one
Bring
Muppet
it.
Babies episode.
I would love that. Muppet Babies at Star Wars too. They did a Star
they
Wars
did.
episode. Yeah,
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Muppet Babies ruled. I should watch some of those. They probably are not good now, but maybe my daughter would like them.
Hey, there, you could. Dylan was saying that they did a new one, or no? Were we talking about that when we did the hot ones? That there's like a newer version of it that came out in like the 2000s.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check that out.
you go.
But okay. Next episode.
This is all you. I want you to reveal what we were playing next week on the podcast or next episode on the podcast, because I know that this is TMNT month was your month, John. So I very much want you to have the honor of doing this.
Well, next game we play, we're going back to the arcade. We're going back to the Super Nintendo. We are playing Turtles in Time. I cannot
Big
wait
Apple,
for that one.
3 a.m.
Cannot wait for that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun. One of the best games out there. One of the games pretty much everyone remembers from this time period, and as a Ninja Turtle fan, everyone loves.
Oh my God,
it was hard to choose between this one and the arcade game, but maybe we do that in the future.
So I had said that I think maybe the part 2 to this is the arcade game and Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah, I like that. We could do that down the line.
Because then, like, there's a ton of TMNT games, not even counting like the actual like not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, the ones that are branded like the TMNT series. There's so many Ninja Turtles games. There's like an arcade fighter that we could play. So many, so many games, and then
yeah. I
shit.
even had a Super Smash Brothers type game on the Wii. TMNT.
Oh. And then you know what we could do?
TMNT Smash Up, it was called.
There are Power Rangers games that we can.
Yes, there are. We played some on Patreon a while ago.
Yes, we did. Man, this is a whole new can of worms here with going beyond wrestling games now. It's exciting.
Yeah,
and
wow.
also kind of overwhelming because there's a lot to play now.
Yeah, we'll always manage.
But it's
TMNT
it's
smash
exciting
up.
too.
Crazy game.
All right. Well, guys, as always, if you want to watch the video version of this podcast as well as the video content that John and I are creating, that is over at youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast. That is the weekly playthrough videos, GMP24, and a whole lot more. Like we mentioned at the top of the podcast, podexchange.shop for all of the exclusive merchandise for this podcast, Going Postal and all things Pod Exchange. We have a pro wrestling tees store. If you would like to pick up some shirts, it's prowrestlingtees.com/GameMarksPod. And if you would like ad-free access to this show, the show notes, and some exclusive content, you can get all that at patreon.com/podexchange. That's PODXCHANGE. We are available on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. And we would very much appreciate it if you were to like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure to ring that notification bell. And as always, if you have a product or service that you'd like to advertise on this podcast, you can reach out to us over at GameMarksPod@gmail.com. Well, that's the first of many TMNT games to play, John. Whenever you are ready, sir, do that thing.
Game over. Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.